All right, so how many of you have heard of gloving or ever seen a light show? Okay, there's a few of you. I'm not surprised. Actually, 4 years ago, I was in the exact same position. So back in high school, me and a couple of friends were hanging out with a mutual friend in a parking lot. And then right when we were about to leave, he was like, wait, I need to show you this new hobby I've been doing called light shows. And we had no idea what he was talking about. But the next thing I know, he starts blasting melodic trance music out of his car. And he came up to us, and he was super close. He went super close to us and started pulling these gloves out of his pockets. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's that? And then he went to describe, well, first, hold on. All right, so first you have the light. And then, boom, you have the gloves. And together, when you put on your hands, you have a light show. And the next thing I know, he just starts dancing with his fingers right in front of my face. And it was absolutely breathtaking. What I imagined was just fireflies just right in front of my face, dancing in the night sky to this music. And I was inspired. But really, what struck me was when I saw his face. He looked so into giving the light show that he was like telling me a story with it. And it really showed that it was his avenue of self-expression. That's when I decided, well, I grew up just having 2 left feet for my whole life, not being able to dance. I was like, this is it. I'm going to pick up these gloves, and me and my friends are going to meet weekly to start critiquing each other and improving our skills. So that's exactly what we did. But what I realized was extremely challenging was just getting the basic moves down. So the essential move that every single glover needs to know how to do is, hold on, the finger roll. So everyone put your hands together and give it a try. So you put your hands together, and essentially what you want to do is close every single finger independently and then open every single finger independently. It looks a lot harder than it seems, so give it a try. Really, like even I've been doing it for 4 years, and it's still not perfect. And what you'll realize, the ring finger and like the pinky fingers, they're just not doing it for you. And that was my struggle. I had so much practice, and honestly, any of you guys do like Pilates or yoga, like my fingers are incredibly buff because I work them out like every day, no joke. And then after I felt comfortable with just the basic moves, I decided, you know what? It's time to move on. And it's time to learn more about gloving. So what I did was I looked online and typed in gloving. The first thing that popped up was this question. If your son likes gloving, does that mean he's doing drugs? And I paused for a moment. I was like, what? What does gloving have to do with drugs? And then I realized maybe my perception of light shows was completely different from everyone else's. And then I decided, I'm going to do some more research. And then I looked it up, and I found out that gloving came from the rave community. And the rave community essentially was these festivals, EDM festivals, with hundreds of thousands of people attending, listening to electronic dance music. And within this rave culture, gloving as a subculture was born. And what I didn't know was that attached to the rave community, there was a huge stigma of drugs. And then people started assuming that because raves equals drugs and gloving is associated with raves, that people assumed that gloving is associated with drugs. And that's where I said, wait a minute, that's a huge misunderstanding. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go to the motherland and attend my first rave a year after I started gloving. And it was phenomenal, the experience I had. The people were just so energetic. The music was just pumping in my blood. I felt it. And I met so many people. And I gave them light shows, and they all loved it. But the thing that surprised me was after every time I gave a light show, the same question occurred. They were just like, are you on drugs? And I'm like, I take a pause, and I'm like, no, I'm not. And honestly, you don't need to be on drugs to appreciate and enjoy giving light shows. And I felt really uncomfortable with the fact that almost every single time I gave a light show, someone asked me a question. So I went up to my like-minded Glovers, and I asked them, how they felt. And lo and behold, they felt the exact same way as me. And they even told me that, there's actually certain events that would ban the use of light shows because it promotes drugs. And that's when I felt repressed from my freedom of self-expression. I felt like that was not right. Something has to be done. And I found out, the gloving community started using these slogans like no glove, no love. And I was all for it. And decided, no pun intended, I'm going to start my own organization with a couple friends that would promote light shows as an art form. So what we did, we started this club called Ambience. And Ambience now is 15 chapters strong across the US. And what each chapter does is they open their doors to students that want to come and learn light shows in a completely drug-free environment, completely out of the rave context. And through there, I realized just how big the community was and how close everybody became. And I realized, wow, I've made such strong relationships just through this experience, and we've put on conventions, competitions, and even on-stage performances to pioneer a new direction for this art form. And then I look back and I try to think of all the people I've met, but one person in particular really struck me. And I met him when we were just tabling for our organization. And he came up to the booth and he was like, oh, I'm a transfer student. I don't really have many friends. I'm trying to get involved. So I told him, all right, come out to meeting. And he shows up, picks up these gloves right away, and just looked super determined and just started practicing hours on end. And I met up with him a couple of months later, just always tracking his progress weekly, and sat him down and talked to him and be like, well, why are you just so into it? And he told me that it's actually funny. He felt like this was more than just a way of expression. He felt imprisoned his whole life within his body. And then I didn't understand what he was talking about until he explained that he has a rare condition that he suffers from chronic pain. Every single movement hurts. And I was so shocked. I never met anybody like that in my life. And then he went on talking to me and saying how, he would listen to music all the time. He loved music, and the music would flow through his ears, into his body, and he wanted to move, but he was caged in. And this became his avenue of self-expression for music. And it was so touching to me. And actually, the last thing he said to me really, really touched me and had a lasting effect. I asked him what gloving was to him. He said, light shows, when he puts on his gloves, he feels like his hands are the paintbrushes and his imagination is his canvas. Thank you. All right, now we're going to do an on-stage performance to give you guys a first-hand experience of what we're doing.
Hey, want a light show?
No, what's that?
Well, haha, let me show you.
Show us what you got when the motherfucking beat drops.